Hello and welcome back to a Kooky Corner of YouTube. I've got you very close up. Let me take you further out. There we go. Hello. We are on a messy desk, and the reason being is for the past week I have been taking you through the ways that we create postcards, the way I tackle a postcard for the Kooky Postcard Sale. And so this one is going to be mainly about needle felting, because a lot of the people who take part, or quite a few of them, are interested in doing the needle felting and have done some, and Annie is great at needle felting, so some of her pieces have been needle felted. But I just thought I'd show you what you would need and what you could actually use in order to needle felt, because sometimes it can get a little bit confusing as to what you can use. Basically, with the postcards, you can use absolutely almost anything woolly or acrylic based or bamboo. But before I get you too confused, I'm going to just show you basically what you can use. When I do my pieces, I will show you what I use as a base, she said. Hopefully I've got them somewhere. So I've got this very thin craft foam. It is completely acrylic or polyester, whatever make it is. There's no wool in this whatsoever. You can use a wool base one. You can use a wool mix or a pure wool base if that's your want. I quite like this for the fact that it is inexpensive. So you're not going to waste something that you're not actually going to see much of, because we're going to be placing things on top of it. And that's why I use this very thin, it's kind of a stiffish felt as well. I got this from Amazon, and it comes in a whole variety of colours that you get in a pack. That's why I like this as a base. Now you could choose whatever you wanted as a base. You could go with a wool base, you could get some woolen fabric, you could even felt into a square or a rectangle of a woolen jumper. All of that is all good. But for me, I'm going with this. Now, the things that I can needle felt into this are varied. So obviously the first thing that you think that you can needle felt in with, I'll just grab some out here, is some wool roving. That is a staple. You can just needle felt this in. I'll just grab a piece just to show you. Let me grab just want a small piece just to show you how this works. Yeah, this is a piece of scrap there. Okay, so I have got a small piece that I've just pulled off here. I only want a small bit just to show you. You lay it on however you want it. You could shape it, you could roll it into a ball, whatever you want to do with it. You could lay it down if you're trying to do a sunset or something like that, or a background or a landscape. Lay it down in layers. And then you've got options. So my options are thus. We've got this 5 needle clover felting tool that's got 5 needles, and it will felt backgrounds really quickly. I have got my 3 needle clover pen tool, which, although it's got 2 fewer needles, it's still pretty good for getting detailed. And obviously think about it, if you've got 1 needle and you've got 5 needles or 3 needles, the felting is going to get done a little quicker. But when you want to get to detailed stuff, that's when you go to a singular needle. So I've got all 3 of these options here. So for this, if I'm going to say this is part of the background, I'd probably use my 5 felting needle. Make sure it's unlocked, and we just felt into the background. You can add as much or as little as you like. So if you want a wispy background, then you'd put less. If you want it to be quite solid, you'd put more. I'm felting into a foam piece of foam underneath. You can have foam, or you could have these guys, which is like a really thick felt base, or you can make your own bases. All of that is fine. Right, okay. You know it's felting if you turn it over and you can see these wisps going through the back. That means that it's felted in. It doesn't mean that you can't pull it off, because if you wanted to, you hated it so much that you didn't want it in there, you just pull it out, like so. But most of the time, you're going to want it to stay there. So yeah, that is roving. You can felt roving on its own to make shapes if you want to. So you can make a flat piece and cut into it. If I'm making a flat piece that I want to be like, say I am doing a present, which I will be doing on my piece. So I'm doing like a little birthday present. I would, instead of doing it out of the roving, I'd grab a piece of pre-made felt. So this is just like a wool mix. This one is I think it's a 40-60, 40 being wool and 60 being some kind of a rayon. Scissors, that's what I'm requiring. I knew there was something I was looking for. So if I was going to do, say, a little square present that I want to put a bow on, and I'm putting that on my piece, I just cut out the shape I want, lie it onto the felt I want it to be backed onto, and you have to do it fairly carefully to start off with because it will lift up. But once you've got a few of these going on, I mean, you could even just go around the edges of it. This is a bit bouncy, this one. Let me try it on this. So I'm just felting this into that background. And you can do this with felt, just ordinary felt. So if you want a definite shape, I would say this is the way that you would go. So you can see, you can continue with that, but you can see also on the back, those little wisps of blue, that means it's felting through. Now it may lose a little bit of its shape, but you'll have more of a square shape than you would if you tried to do it out of this. So that's for more sort of wispy details. I'm not saying you can't use this to make something like this, you can, it's just going to take a little bit longer. The other option you have, and let me just whip that off there, is something called pre-felt. Now that comes in sheets. So I'm going to grab a colour that's going to show up a little better. This one's going to show up for sure. So this is merino wool pre-felt. It's wool that has been treated to be a felt, but it has been stopped felting before it gets to the fully felted stage, which is good for us because this means, see, like this. Now what you can do with this is you can pull this apart. This is a pullable apart piece, but it also means that you can grab your scissors. It's a very messy desk, isn't it? You can cut out a shape. I'm going to go with a square again. You can lay that on your piece. I'll probably make that a little bit squarer. So you can see how easy that is. But this is a lot, if you look at this one, this is a lot more robust than this would be if I tried to pull that apart. Pre-felt is great for this, for cutting out shapes to lay in and then felt into. So start to felt this one in the same way. It's easier than trying to felt in actual felt because it's softer. Let's have a look at the back. Yeah, look, you can see the little yellow flecks coming through. I'd obviously keep going with this a bit more until it was properly felted in. Like so. And there you've got a really nice square shaped piece of felt. The other thing you can do, not just wool, you can actually use acrylic. So if you've got acrylic yarn, so for example, let me grab something out. This is a piece of collinet yarn that I've had hanging around, and I keep the spare bits in my wool felting box because this is wool felt. Wool yarn. So I can pull this apart. This is quite a loose woven in parts. It's very tightly woven in some parts and loosely woven in other parts. So I keep this for felting purposes. So I'll pull a piece off and felt it in. Now, if you have got any acrylic yarn, which I'm hoping I've got some in here, so this is an acrylic yarn and I have pulled it apart. It's quite a loosely woven one, but even if you get one that's quite tightly woven, you can brush these layers out with a little wire brush, and you can get something that resembles a wool roving. Now, if you're allergic to wool, this is the way to go. You can either go this way, you can get some cotton roving as well, and you can also get bamboo roving, but you can get acrylic roving that you can needle felt in the same way that you would needle felt anything that was wool, like so. And that's going through. You can see the little fibres at the back coming through, and that is acrylic. So if you are allergic to wool, you can still needle felt. I have done a whole video on acrylic, turning acrylic yarn into a needle feltable substance. So if you want to go back through my needle felting playlist, you will find that one in there. And it's a very handy thing to know if you are allergic to the lanolin wool, or you don't want to use wool for whatever reason. Acrylic is your way forward, and it's a lot cheaper, and sometimes you've got yarn that you haven't used and you can reuse it to make it into some needle felting. So all of these methods, all of these materials are good to go, and now we're going to get on to the point where we put them together. I've got myself a little plan, a very small plan. I was just thumbnailing it basically in a felt way. And what I want to do, not obviously in a yellow background, but it's just a piece of scrap. I want to do a little decorated Christmas tree with the snowy background, and then add in some presents. I didn't put the presents on, I was just kind of thinking how the thing would go together. So this is my back piece. So I cut out two the same size. One of them will go on the back to cover everything up at the back and keep it all nice and neat. And the first one is the one that I'm going to be working on. So I have this felt, which I've had in my stash for a while. It is an acrylic felt with some glitter added on, and I thought that would be nice to go on there. That will probably be stitched on rather than needle felted on because of the glue that's been used for the glitter. So that's the way I'm going with that. But first of all, I want to add something into the background. Now, what I have got is this from World of Wool, and it's a beautiful, beautiful merino wool with some Angelina fibres included in it. I hope you can see that shining. It's rather lovely. So when you're pulling apart your fibres, you do it really gently. If you tug them hard, then they won't come apart. That's the way they work. So I'm going to add some of this into my background as like wispy background pieces. Well, that's the general idea. And anything that hangs over the end, you can fold it in and needle felt it in if you like, or you can just trim it with a pair of scissors once you're done. So for this particular piece, I don't want it to be like a solid block. I just want it to be kind of wispy. So I'm putting very small amounts. See where my snow comes to. So that comes to about there. That's probably about right. So I will grab, make sure that it's unlocked, and start felting it down. You can add more, take some away, however I want it to go. but for me at the minute this looks to be about the right amount. So you can see the 5 needle holder makes short work of attaching these fibres. And we have a little check, keep pulling it up, we can see that those fibres are migrating through to the other side. We need to keep going for a little bit longer there. So it's a good idea to get yourself a podcast or an audiobook. I'm sorry if I'm joggling the camera, by the way. It is the way. Try and keep it as steady as I can. So you get to a point where you think, okay, let's make sure these are really all down on the edges. So I've gone in with my 3 tool like this. And you just keep going until you're happy. The Angeline fibres will kind of needle felt a little bit. They're not going to go, they're going to be held in by the wool that's over them, if you see what I mean. So although you can see them coming through here, can you see little shiny bits? So it is going through, but it won't go through as obviously as well as the wool. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I am going to lie my fabric on there, and I could see if this will felt a little bit. That's a little hard going. You have to be careful not to break your needles as well. Yeah, it is going through a little bit, so I could probably just give it a few passes through so that I can just keep it in place really, and then I'll probably sew that on. It's probably going to be a bit of a sewing job. Okay, next thing is my simplified tree. So I have got this tree here. Well, it's a big green triangle really. It's a tree, okay? We'll call it the tree. I'm going to start to felt it in. Sometimes it's easier on a stiffer surface. So work with what goes best. Keep your fingers out of the way of those very sharp needles. That's going down. If you find it's not going down and you're not liking the look of it when it's felted in, these bits can always be sewn on, you know. You can combine. You can combine needle felting and sewing and a little bit of applique. This is called appliqued felt, but if you want to applique some fabric onto this, you could as well. There are no rules. There are no postcard police who are going to come and say, I'm sorry, that's not the way you do that. I do apologise for the joggling of the camera, but unfortunately it's the way of the world when I'm felting. That's how it goes. So that's holding in. It's going to hold in enough for me to work with that. Now what I want is a tree trunk, so I need to find myself something that's trunky. And this is a piece of merino wool yarn. That's kind of trunky-ish. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to split it apart a bit. Well, maybe that wasn't a good idea. I was just trying to make it more fibrous. So I'm going to lay that where I want it to be. I'm going to use my 3 needle to felt this one in. Drag that bit down there. So I could have left it all together. Probably would have been a much more sensible idea, but you know, let's make life hard for ourselves. Okay, it's kind of looking vaguely chunky, but I am going to go in with a full piece. Snip another bit off. It's holding itself together, and yarn should felt, so I think that's better. We're all good to go with that. Drag those pieces in. give myself a trunk. Well, not me personally, although sometimes I wish I was a tree. A random thought. Sometimes it might be nice to be a tree. Okay, so you can make that as long or as short as you want it to be. I'm quite happy with how that is. So I've got my tree. Now I want to add in some decoration. Now the way I'm going to do this is, let's have a little look in. My desk is getting messier and messier, isn't it? But you know, work in progress and all that. Just looking to see what I've got here that I can utilise. Oh, I like that. Ooh, hello. Okay, this might be a singular needle job. Grab out the singular needle from underneath the mess and see if we can felt in some of this yarn, which seems to be working quite nicely. So I'm going to take it up that way. Yes. Just play around with it. Someone was asking about design, so you can try things out before you do it, like I did with this. You know, you can do simple things like that. You could draw out your design as well. That all helps in the process of putting together your postcard. Sometimes I just wing it and go in with whatever I think. I had got an idea for this, but I haven't drawn it down anywhere. I've just kind of gone in with it. But sometimes I do draw out how I'd like it to look, especially if it's got a lot of detail in it. I will draw it out. See what else I've got in this little selection of goodies. Got all kinds of things in here. Ooh, got some fancy blue there. No, maybe I'll just leave it at that. And I'm gonna go in with some wool tops. Now, if you ever bought one of my Rainbow Connection packages with some fabrics in and a little bit of needle felting stuff, then this little bit of needle felting stuff is what I'm using here. So I'm trying to make a small ball, because I want to make a bauble. So for this I'm going to use my singular needle, and I'm just going to make sure it kind of stays in a circular manner. Felt it in. Like so. Do the same again with this. You see how little I actually need. You don't need a ton for this at all. It's not like you are building up a 3D object. But saying that, I saw the ones that Annie made way back in January, and they were beautifully done, and they stood a fair way away from the background. So you can build upon it and make it as 3D as you want it to be. The choice is all yours. Okay, so more baubles, different colour. I'm going to go with this nice bright red. It's kind of like a vermilion actually. Yeah, definitely say it's kind of a vermilion-y colour. So I'm going to stick you right in the middle of there. So I'm going to, if you see me doing this, I'm kind of just shaping it as I go along. If you can try and roll it into a ball form before, if that's what you're wanting to do, then if you're doing dots or anything, that works particularly well. You can see what I'm doing. Lovely jubbly. Just want to make sure that that's over at that side. Got like a little bit of tinsel that's wrapped around the tree there. And blue. A bit of blue in there. It should go very gently. You can maneuver. Don't try and drag things. Once your needle's in as well, it needs to go in and out. It doesn't need to go all the way up the needle. You're just using kind of the tip, because if you look at this, the barbs are all on that end inch there, all the little barbs that felt. So taking it any further than that is just a waste of your energy, really. Okay, so I'm trying to roll this into a ball. Okay, and trying to keep my finger out of the way. You can use finger protectors as well if that makes you happier. That's all well and good there. I've got a bit of orange. I'm going bauble-tastic with this. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to put that one. That can go there along that bottom edge there. Needle felt that in. I love the sound of it as well as it goes through, especially these felting blocks. They make that nice crunchy sound. I quite like that. Okay. Just occasionally lift up your piece from whatever surface you're working on, because it will felt down into it, but you can pull it out quite easily. So, excellent. So what I want to do now is to add on some of the little presents that I'm going to put underneath the tree. So I did grab a piece. Actually, I think I'll have a piece of that merino pre-felt, so this yellow stuff here. So where's the edge? There it is. I'm going to grab out a little square of that to go on my underneath my tree. Trim it down so that present can go there. Now, what else have I got? I've got some pre-felt in different colours. So I think 3 presents is a good number. I'm going to go with 3. I like odd numbers. So World of Wool is a great place to grab all these things from. If you're in the UK, obviously there will be other places in different countries. I think I'm going to make that a smaller present. Yeah, just by way of a change. So I'm going to put that on there. And what else have I got? Oh my gosh, I've got everything going on here at the minute. I think I'm going to go with some actual felt for another one. It's going to be in this pink colour. I'll trim it down a little bit. I'm going to have a massive tidy up after this. So let's put that one there. So I've got my organisation of presents. So the pre-felt goes in really easily. I could actually use my 3 needle felter on this one. If you've got an embellishing machine, I don't know how many people have. I have actually got one. So at one point, if you're interested, I will show you how that works. Well, sometimes it's just a bit of a bind when it's a small piece and I've not got a lot to do on it, just to drag it out. And also I quite like this process too. But if you're doing bigger pieces, then the embellisher is pretty good for that. I can hear the seagulls up on my roof. I think Susie Q sent them back to me again. we share them. We've got seagull shares. I send them back over to her when I'm fed up with them, and then she does the same to me. They like to peer at me through the Velux window and taunt me. Right, so we have those all felted in nicely. You can check on the back, you can see the threads, the fibres coming through. Not so much on this pink one because that is an actual felt itself, but I can still see that coming through, so it's all good. Right, now what am I going to do with the ties on the presents? So I could split this off. So this is going to be one for this one. So I'm going to use my singular needle to felt this in. Might be a little bit too long. I can trim it down. That'd be all good. I'm not going to worry about that top bit because I'm going to put a little bow on there, but I will trim that down there. And the other bit, split that off a bit. That can go across there. So carefully grab the middle bit, get that in. And get the middle bit in and then felt along that area. This bit is a bit thinner than the other, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's all good. It's all gravy. Oh, go on then. Let's add that in. You can play around with this as much as you want. I am not playing around too much with it because I am doing this for demonstration purposes. I don't know if you can take you down a bit and along a bit, and then you can see what I'm up to. And try not to bash the camera. So if you've got overhang, you can literally trim that down. Like so. That's all good. Pull it out of there. So once you've got all your decorated bits on there, I'm going to add something else onto the top. You could do little tags out of felt that you could stitch on there. That's an option that I might actually do. But I'm going to trim off now this bit around the edges here, just to get rid of all that excess that I do not need from my wispy snow sky. Now, I know this bit's not stitched down yet, but I'm saving my sewing elements for last. The sewing elephants come in later. I've got visions now of an elephant stitching something. This is how my brain works. I'm going to save those bits because they always come in handy, even if they're tiny weeny little pieces. I've got a lot going on this desk at the moment, to be fair. Okay, so now I'm going to grab out some thread. I actually might go and find a white thread for stitching this down, or I could go in with this Lurexy blue. No, I'm going to go and get a white thread, and I'm going to over sew just around that top edge there. So just a little over sew to hold that down. And basically you've got all your techniques here that you need. So you can stitch into it, you could add pieces of fabric into it if you wanted. So your presents you could actually stitch on as fabric pieces if you wanted to. There are no rules. It is down to you. So if you're happy to get yourself a needle felted background, you could do this all in needle felting, or you could combine it with stitching and sewing. So I'm going to go and stitch this down here so that it's all down, and I might fiddle around adding a few more bits in. But if I do something different, I will come back and show you. And so here is the finished piece, and I will go through the little bits that I added since I left you to have a go with your own piece. First of all, I actually went round over sewing this piece of felt down, like I said I was going to do, just a little over sew in a colour that matches so that it doesn't really show up too much. I also went down there with some mint, so I did a mint running stitch up and down that particular part, and then I went into the presents and added a little fabric one. Like I mentioned, that you could add a little square of fabric in there if you wanted to, and I thought that little corner just needed something extra. If we have a look at the top here, I've gone with a green spiral that I've stitched in and some little rays coming off of that to go across the piece. On the tree itself, I really haven't done an awful lot. I've added a little glittery star that I cut out of my glittery fabric, and I put a little dot of Stickles glue onto each of those little felted areas there. I went in with some stitch over the top of that tinsely area there, and I went in with some stitch over the tree trunk as well. And obviously then the backing went on, and I blanket stitched all the way around it to finish it off. And so that's what it looks like when it's finished. This is just a sample piece to try and show you of all the different bits that you can use in order to put together a postcard if you're using mainly needle felting. So this was the other one that we made previously. That's a robin. So fairly similar stitching into, but just different background techniques, and more felt in this one and more fabric in this one. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little mini series of how to put together a postcard, and I'm hoping that you're wanting to join in the sew along. You've still got time to join in the December one if you want to. Pictures of those need to be in by the 29th of December so that I can add them in the roundup reel for December. So I'll be starting another set of prompts in January, so there'll be plenty for you to have a go at throughout the year. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, a like, and also if you are interested in knowing when I upload, then the best thing to do is subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything at all. It's just a little click to subscribe. And once you're in there, if you click the bell, then you'll get a notification every time I upload a new video. That's all from me. I'll be back here very soon with something else. Bye for now.